All right, we got an Ms201tc, so that's the Amtronic version of Steele's professional climbing saw, and nothing too juicy today, but this is a good learning experience if you're trying to diagnose a problem. All right, so this saw is relatively low hour, and I'm thinking, geez, what could be wrong? I will have to say, I'll have to hand it to Steele. These are incredibly reliable. So I got a no start issue. Pull, nothing's happening. I pull the plug and it's flooded. And I'm like, okay, maybe, you know, this is on the job site. They just here take turns pulling. And maybe I can get this thing to pop off. So what I'm wanting you to hear, if I can recreate it, is I'll just get one little pop or a pop, but I won't get anything else. Like that. So I got fire, but I don't. So today's a lesson in those people that say,
I had a diagnostic cancer, I can't fix Amtronic.
So here's the deal. That is a definite sign that I've got a broken wire, and I'll tell you a short story so that'll help better explain this. This is something that I'll never forget. When these first came out, I had a saw. We ended up sending it back to Steele, their corporate office, not corporate offices, but the regional office in Charlotte, to diagnose the problem. Spent weeks trying to get this thing to go, but just like that it did it perfect. Pull the cord, you get a little pow. Pull the cord, get a little pow. Doesn't matter if you got it on choke, doesn't matter. You're just gonna flood it because all you're getting is just one little burst. So the reason why that tells me that I have a broken wire is that very hard lesson. All that time I spent trying to diagnose and fix and check everything, swapping parts, replacing parts. Rule number one, if the coil and the carburetor can't communicate, nobody's home. At least on this one. I know that for a fact. So when it popped once, I was earlier, and then it did the same thing after I got, you know, the crankcase flushed out and dried out and put a new spark plug in it, and just said, okay, maybe if I can just get this to run, I'll get it in the wood. And it did exactly that for me. I turned the handle upside down. Here, I'd bring you in here. I don't know if I can show you this, but this is where you want to look. So I don't know if this thing was bounced, pinched, or what. But if we look up underneath here, surprise! Actually, it's not a surprise. So I've got a spare wiring harness around here. We're gonna swap out the wiring harness. And if I plug this up, it'll tell me the exact same thing, that I don't have communication. But the funny thing is, and I'll set this up and I'll show you, I can't make this thing spark on the bench. So your normal way to do this would be to pull the plug out, pull the boot, ground it to the cylinder or something metal, you know, the muffler, and then pull it over. But I didn't get any spark from here, zero. I even tried spinning it over with a drill, and I just couldn't get any spark. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to diagnose why your saw will not start, or if it just pops once and then you pull it and it pops, and pull it and it pops. One other thing. I live in South Carolina. There's no reason that should be on Snowflake, and I don't know who, here. That just doesn't accidentally flop over. Your Snowflake setting, your cold weather setting, is for literally below freezing temperatures. It's sunny South Carolina. That doesn't happen enough. So when you have this on Snowflake, this allows hot air to come from the cylinder and help warm the carburetor box. That's not going to help you in South Carolina weather. Oh, I got everything ripped out of the handle. carburetor removed, and wiring harness is out. I'm gonna take you in a little closer, and this is our culprit right there. That wire's actually broken. Looks like it got pinched in half when the handle bottomed out right there. It just pinched it so hard, it just cut it. Anyway, it's an uncommon thing. Usually, you can't do it while operating. Usually, this probably took a little bit of a bounce. And, you know, there's another clue. You know, the plastics on the top handle and the air filter cover are pretty thin. That really can't take too much abuse. I do have a video, you can search it, on how to put all this nonsense back together. I think I did one normal, and then one that was like a 15-20 minute video, so it was a little bit more in depth on every little step. But it's not hard. You know, there's little channels that the wires go through just to make sure everything's all tucked in. Should take you about 15 minutes. All right, that took about 10 minutes. I will point out one thing. One of the sneaky things, and you know, you guys can just look if you want to pause this and see where everything hooks up. But there's your sneaky one. That choke rod right here goes on the underside of that one. And anyway, that's that. Let me get the rest of this buttoned up and I'll show you the rest. Okay, for science and stuff, I've already got this all back together. So it was our yellow wire that should be grounded right there. So I have got this unhooked, put off to the side, and this won't be grounded because it'll be touching plastic. And let's plug it up to the fancy dancer MDG1 and see if it'll tell me, hey, you got a broken wire harness. Okay, it won't detect the unit. I'm going to reattach this and give it another shot, and I'll be right back. Okay, now it will read it. So you would have to fix the problem before you could plug it in. But so let's look at some of the data we got here while we're plugged in. Like I said, I felt like this is a really low hour unit. Patiently waiting. I really need to get the 2.0 software. Last time I checked, they were having some issues with it running like it's supposed to. They still had some bugs in it, so I may reach out to Steel Rep and see if we can give it another go. Okay, operating data. 40 hours of runtime, successful starts, unsuccessful starts since the last time. You know, so that just confirms that, you know, well, we have a no start. Both fuel settings are where they need to be, and it reached its max RPM at the 2 hour or 3 hour mark, give or take. So anyway, that's how much help it's going to be if I had that broken wire. I would have had to fix the broken wire, then I'd plug it in, and then I can go run through all the diagnostics. So, brings us to our next thing. So theoretically, now we would have to recalibrate it because we have replaced one of the M-tronic components. And I promise you, I'm going to keep preaching this on most of these videos that we touch on with M-tronic stuff. I'm convinced that the M-tronic, or the recalibration and reset process, is for a bench test to make sure that it's functioning properly. We're going to go stick it in a piece of analog hickory and make sure that it runs right. So let me get a bar and chain on this thing and get all the covers back on, and then we'll go run it and make sure that everything's cool. Okay, now I have not started this. I haven't pulled the cord, I haven't done anything. It's all been over there on the bench. So let's see what happens. right, so like I've told y'all, it's good to let it idle. But obviously it's smoking a little bit. I've noticed that the cylinder was a little on the greasy side. You know, if you're doing pruning jobs, you're not doing big cuts, you know, you're not going to get up to full operating temperature. But let's just give it one more goose. And that right there, my friends, is a repair. Low tech. Okay, that right there was one of the sneakier Mtronic issues. But if you know what you're looking for, look, if something Mtronic fails, it does something very specific. In the old days when we had the black solenoids, one of the telltale signs you had a bad solenoid was you could fire it up cold, run it, and then God forbid you shut it off, because you were not going to crank it right back up. You'd have to let it sit and cool down, and then it would start. Excuse me. So then you need a new solenoid. If you had a good ear for it, you know, if it was idling a little bit on the slow side, that was also a telltale sign that you needed one of the old black solenoids. I've yet to replace one of the new white solenoids, gray solenoids. I love Mtronic and auto-tune stuff. I'm telling you, it's so nice. I don't have to worry about teaching people how to tune stuff and whatever. So if you learned something today, throw me a thumbs up, like a comment down below. But I've said this many, many times. I have the diagnostic software. I rarely use it. The only reason why I took it out today was just to prove you would have to start from scratch on this, because you had no spark. When I was trying to manually get some spark, you could have replaced the coil on this and still had the same problem. You would have got that pop-pop, pop-pop. So, that's it. I'm done talking. Bye. Y'all have a great day.